All right, ladies and gentlemen, stand to your feet for one more time, please. Oh, I didn't ask to clap, but you can. Thank you. The next speaker that you are going to have the honor to listen to is a gentleman whom I met a few years ago, and he speaks on a topic that I know that is personal to him, for he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer and is able to stand with us today. 5 years later, he just told me this a little bit back later in September, he was given the 5-year clearance to say that he is officially free of cancer. But tonight, I've read his book, Cancer Killers. There's so much you could say about this man, the way that he thinks, his approach of doing life, and just, it's intoxicating. But I want you to hear it straight from his mouth. So please, put your hands together and welcome to this stage tonight, Dr. Charles Majors. Dr. Charles Majors.
Got me? There you go. So what if everything you thought about cancer was wrong? What if everything your doctors and your oncologists thought about cancer was wrong? In the next hour and 15 minutes, I want to take you on a journey. And in this journey, I want to show you not only what causes cancer, I want to show you that the only cure for cancer is getting to the cause. One Sunday, a little old man and woman were driving. They drive every Sunday. They go for a ride. And they're in their 80s. And they pulled up to this gas station. And they always pull up to the same gas station because it's a full service, very few left. And the little old man asked the attendant, he said, "Can you please clean the windows?" And the attendant said, "Absolutely." And he went over and he cleaned his window. And the little old man, he looked over at his wife and he said, "I don't think that window's clean. I'm going to ask him to do it again." And she said, "Oh, okay." So he said, "Hey, can you please clean the window again? It's just not clean." So the attendant said, "No problem." Went over there, cleaned his window again. He got done with it. The old man said again, looked at his wife and said, "It's still dirty." And his wife's like, "Oh my God." So he went over one more time and he said, "Please, my window is still dirty. Can you please clean my window?" So instead of cleaning the window this time, he reached his hands into the window. He grabbed the guy's glasses off. He wiped his glasses off, put them back on his face, and he said, the old man said, "Now that window's clean." That filter that he was seeing through his window was dirty. That same filter is the same way you see the world, some of you. Is your filter dirty or is your filter clean? Your filter determines your perception, and your perception determines your action. How you see the world, how you see cancer, how you see disease, like Dr. Patrick said, how you see hormones will completely change the way you take actions. And so, how would you see this? How would you see this? If you were laying in a hospital bed and those doctors walk in your room and tell you, you not only have a stage 4 cancer spread to your brain, it's all over your body. You have weeks to live. There's no hope. There's no cure. How would you see it? What would your perception be in that moment? Would you see it as a gift, or would you see it as a curse? Would you see it as a blessing, or would you see it as the worst thing that could ever happen to you? Would you see it as a setback or a setup for the most amazing life and amazing gifts God could ever give you? How you see the world, how you see your cancer, how you see your disease will completely change your life. I promise you. So this was the day they diagnosed me. And they walked in the room and said, "There's no hope. There's no cure." It's in your brain. It's all over your body. And in that moment, I had that choice. In that moment, my life began to change. At the time, I said, we had 3 kids. I was great where we were. And at the time, I said, I'm not only going to make it through this, I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have another child. I just decided that life is way too important, that I want to have more children. But what they were telling me is I had no hope. I had no cure. There was nothing I could do. I had weeks to live. And so I made a decision. Your life's made in your moment of decision. Your life's made in the moment of decision. It was in this decision right here. This is the day that I got out. I had a choice. I could go over here, what was called Prentice, which was their chemo ward, radiation ward, do a bone marrow transplant. They said it would buy me time. Or I could take the road that I don't know where I'm going yet, right? So I could buy a little bit of time here, maybe live longer than a few weeks, or I could go over here. And obviously, I chose a different road. I knew in that moment I was sick. I was 118 pounds, lost over 50 pounds in a wheelchair, could barely walk or move. And at that time, I knew you couldn't make me sicker to make me healthier. I was sick. I knew that you couldn't put more toxins in me. I knew that the key to health wasn't putting poison in my body. That's where I was. So I made a decision to leave. I made a decision to go figure out exactly what cancer is, exactly then how am I going to reverse it. So because if you know what something is, you have a better chance at reversing it. So I left there, obviously left chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And a year and a half later, I delivered my 4th child at home in the bathroom. Right? That gift would not be here if it wasn't for that moment. If it wasn't for that diagnosis, what the devil did for evil, God did for good. So now it was time to figure out, how did I get there? How did I even get there a year and a half later? How did I get here 5 years later and 5.5 when most people would never make it? So how did I get there? So to never get cancer or to reverse cancer, you have to know what it is. You have to know what cancer is. So what is cancer exactly? Most people, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you freak out. When you're diagnosed with cancer, you think it's over and it's the end, no matter where you're at. I have patients in stage 1. I have patients in stage 4. And so when you know what it is and understand what it is, you start to relax. That cancer can't kill you. It's in my book, All the Science Behind It. Unless that cancer was big enough to block one of your organs, shut down your brainstem where I was at, and it took years to get that way, cancer's not going to kill you. Cancer's not your enemy. It's there to help you survive. It's there to help you. You want to get rid of it, but you have to see it completely different. So what is it? Your body's made up of trillions of cells. Every single one of you sitting here is made up between 50, 60, 70 trillion cells. Some of you more, some of you less. You get that. So the point is, every cell of your body dies. It has a cell life. It has a life cycle. It dies. It's called apoptosis. Every cell of your body is genetically programmed to grow and die, grow and die, grow and die. But when these cells no longer die, that's called cancer. And so you have one cell that just isn't dying anymore, and then 2 cells, mirror image, then 4 cells, then 8 cells, then 16, and then it keeps going and going and going. That's all cancer is. It's all cancer is. There's nothing about it that's going to kill you. If I took it out and had it in front of you and show it to you, it's not going to kill you. What we want to figure out today is what causes it. Something caused it. As I was laying in that hospital bed, something caused my normal, healthy cells to move into cancer cells. Something caused my immune system to no longer take control and balance this out and kill this. Something caused this. And if I can figure out what caused this, if I can figure out what cancer is, I can reverse this. And so cancer doesn't make you sick. I know this is hard for some of you. You go, no, you haven't seen my sister. You haven't seen my aunt. You haven't seen my best friend. They're sick. It's not the cancer making them sick. You've been sick for years then you get cancer. Does that make sense? You've been sick for years, then you get cancer. If I just get rid of your cancer, thank God there's that ability to do that. Chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, even intravenous stuff and all those other things. If I just killed it, even naturally, what are you still? You're still sick. Now, what if I decide to use chemotherapy, radiation, surgery? Thank God the cancer's gone, but now you're more sick. So we got to figure out what made you sick. We got to figure out what caused this cancer to develop in the first place. What caused you to get sick? The flu doesn't make you sick. If the flu made us sick, every one of you would be sick all the time because everybody around you has the flu. No matter where you go, somebody's got it. It's your weak body, your sick body that allows that virus to grow. Does everybody get that? So if I just kill the flu, you're still sick. You don't just wake up one day and get diabetes. You've been sick for years, eating horrible, then you get diabetes. I had a cancer patient who came in last week and she said, I'm type 2 diabetic. And she must have said it 6 times during the cancer consult. And I said, please quit saying you're type 2 diabetic and tell me what you really are. She goes, what do you mean? Here's what I want you to say. You can never say type 2 diabetes. You need to say, I eat too much sugar, I won't stop eating sugar, and you can't make me stop eating sugar. That's what diabetes is. And when you finally admit what you have, now we can actually fix that. You can't stay in denial and keep labeling yourself, I have cancer or not. No, you have a body that's sick. You have an immune system that's weak, and your body no longer can fight this. Your body, the cancer is adapting. It's keeping you alive. It's adapting to the environment it's in. Your cells always respond to their environment. They always respond to their environment. Your cells respond to the environment. So if I came at you in the front row here, if I came at you with a knife, immediately what happens to your blood pressure? Does it go up or down? It goes up. Good or bad? Very good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get up and kill me, and I would kill you, right? Dr. Flynn talked about it. If your testosterone, men, as you get older, does your testosterone go up or down usually? It goes down, and as your testosterone goes down, what do you think your body has to raise to compensate? Remember, Dr. Flynn talks about it all the time. What does your body need to make every hormone? Cholesterol. So men, as your testosterone is coming down because you aren't getting control of it, what's going to start raising to keep your cholesterol? Is that good or bad? Every symptom is the body doing the right thing at the right time. And your body's powerful, your body's amazing, and it knows what it's doing. So what we need to figure out today is, how did this happen? Cancer is a survival mechanism. The body is powerful. The body is amazing. It would never make any mistakes. Trust me on that. You are made up of over 70 trillion cells in your body. And I'm going to tell you how powerful the human body is and that God made no mistakes. If I took out every bit of DNA in your cells, it's wound up so tight that if I lined it end to end, it would go to Pluto and back. That's how much DNA is in your body. You have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in your body. It would go around the earth 2.5 times in your body. You have so much stomach acid. The stomach acid is at such a perfect pH that it actually kills off your stomach lining, and every 3 or 4 days you get a new stomach. And if there was too much pH or too less pH, you'd be dead. Because your body either would kill you fast, the acid, or you wouldn't be able to break your foods down. The body is so smart in its wisdom that your heart pumps enough energy in one day to actually fuel a truck and give it enough energy to go 20 miles. That's how powerful you are. And you think that cancer is a mistake? You think your blood pressure is a mistake? You think these things are a mistake? It's the body doing the right thing at the right time to compensate or adapt to the environment it's in. Your cells will always adapt to their environment. Always adapt to their environment. So here's how it works. We have a normal, healthy cell. I'm going to use the example of my hand. If I go to the gym and I work out and I damage my hand, or you're a mechanic and you're just using your hands and damaging the skin and damaging the skin and damaging the skin, what's going to show up there eventually? A callus. That's a callus right there. Is my body doing the wrong thing at the wrong time? Is my body dumb? What's it doing in that moment? It's what? Say that. Somebody said it over here. I've never had an audience that didn't say it. You understand that the cells will always adapt to the environment. The environment is damaging. So what happens? My cells have to move into the next layer of cells, which is a callus. If you damage your colon over and over, and you're eating foods and you're not getting testing with Dr. Flynn, and you're eating foods that you're sensitive to and not know it, and you're damaging your colon, and you're taking acid reflux drugs, and you're not breaking your foods down, you don't eat raw foods, you don't get your enzymes, and all these foods and all these enzymes, or all these other dangerous toxins go into your gut, finally you keep damaging the digestive system, damaging the colon, eventually what shows up? A polyp. I can cut the polyp out, I can cut your callus off. But if I go back to the gym and I keep working out, if I keep eating and living the lifestyle, what's going to show back up again? Another polyp, right? Another polyp. And then I keep damaging an area, I move into the next layer of cells, which is like an ulcer. An ulcer is considered a metaplastic cell. It took time for this to happen. You've damaged it. H. pylori, for example, is one of the major causes of ulcers. Why? Because H. pylori is a bacteria. And when there's a bacteria that's sitting in your stomach, your brain recognizes it, and what does your brain want to do with that bacteria? It wants to get rid of it, so it sends an immune response. So it's sending inflammation to your stomach, creating what? Damage. So now the person goes into an ulcer. The doctors just give them drugs, don't fix anything. They keep damaging their stomach, and now they end up with what? Stomach cancer. Right? You keep damaging the colon, all you do is remove the polyp, you end up with what? Colon cancer. Women, you get your first abnormal pap smear, you have these dysplasia cells. Any women ever had, or somebody you know has had dysplastic cells? They may cut those cells off of there, but then what happens as you keep damaging the area? More of those cells come back. And if you don't find out what's causing that, and you just keep getting rid of those cells, what happens? You end up in the next layer of cells, which is neoplastic. And all you do is take your drugs, do your surgeries, keep covering up your symptoms, never get to the cause. Now you end up finally in what? Everybody say it? Cancer. Everybody sees that now? Cancer is when the cells have been damaged. And now, are these cells responding to the environment or not? Your cells always respond to your environment. When you change the environment, you change what? You change the cells. When you change the environment, you change the cells. So it's time to look in, how do we change that environment? So how much of what I'm saying is true? Now that is exactly how it works. Again, this is science. This is not my belief system. This is science. This is how it works. Your doctors won't tell you this, your oncologists won't tell you this, because they don't look at any causes. They look finally at the end, and what do? They treat the cancer. Thank God it's crisis care. Thank God, that's what they do. But cancer is not a crisis, trust me. It's not a crisis. Even where I was, in a stage 4, spread to the brain. No, I didn't have brain cancer. I had stage 4 multiple myeloma in the bone marrow all over my blood, then spread to my brain. I would have been lucky if I just had brain cancer, trust me, right? I had a cancer that metastasized with no hope and no cure. But something caused it. Something kept creating my body, normal cells, to move into these abnormal cancer cells. So the new hypothesis, cancer is a survival mechanism. Because what's your body doing? Like when I chased him with a knife, what was his body doing? It had high blood pressure, but what his body was trying to what? Survive. My body was trying to survive. If he has H. pylori and his body, his immune system is attacking the bacteria, why is it attacking that bacteria over and over? Because it's trying to do what? It's trying to survive. Women, those of you that have HPV latches into the cells in your cervix, right? It latches inside of those cells, and your immune system recognizes it and wants to keep you alive and get rid of the virus. It creates an inflammatory reaction over and over again, and finally you have what? You finally get cancers. And I'm going to go through this for you. The first time I've ever shown any of this. I don't show this very often. I'm going to show you the cause of every single cancer there is. How do you like that? So what is cancer? What is cancer exactly? According to the Journal of Cell Death and Disease, this is very interesting because this is very important. If you don't want to get cancer, or if you want to reverse cancer, we have to figure out what it is. The metabolism of a cancer cell is completely different than the metabolism of a normal cell. So if I'm looking at it going, I have two cells here. I have a cancer cell and I have a normal cell, and they have two different metabolisms. So down at the deepest level of where all cancer begins, we know it has an Achilles heel. And that means its metabolism is completely different. Metabolism means this is the way it gets its energy. The way cancer cells get their energy are completely different. And the metabolic properties of cancer cells diverge significantly from those of normal cells, which means they're totally different. And they completely rely on one thing. It's called glycolysis, which is what? Does anybody know? It's called sugar. Every cell of your body, you're right, this is what your doctors tell you, every cell of your body needs sugar. You're absolutely correct. Sugar is the fastest, easiest way to get energy. That's why as soon as you eat some sugar, you feel good, and then what happens? It spikes down. Absolutely. Your brain uses sugar 24 hours a day. That's why brain cancers are so hard, because it's always uptaking sugar. So these cells, these cancer cells, are nothing like normal cells. We know they have an Achilles heel. They have to have sugar to survive. They have no ability to bring in oxygen. A normal healthy cell brings in two things. It can bring in oxygen and it can bring in sugar. It uses both. It's an amazing fuel efficient car, let's call it. So your normal cell here is a great fuel efficient smart car. It has no problem using either one. It can use either one. If you want to just eat sugar all day, this cell figures it out. And if you want to not eat any sugar at all, it figures it out. This cell will also figure out how to take protein and convert it to sugar. It's so smart. It wants sugar. So your doctors are absolutely correct that your cells need sugar. Now, this cancer cell on the other side is completely different. So the way it works is your cancer cells produce 2 ATP for every 1 molecule of glucose. Remember, glucose is sugar. It'll be simple here in a second. So here's my Humvee or my semi-truck. Think of that as a fuel efficient. For every gallon of gas I put in here, does it get a lot of miles? Let's just say for every 1 gallon of gas, it only gets 2 miles to the gallon. Does everybody get that? My normal healthy cell, for every 1 gallon of gas, it will get 36 to 38 miles to the gallon. Does that make sense? A little bit easier? I'm not Dr. Patrick. Dr. Patrick takes everything, the most complicated thing you've ever heard, and explains it. Is that amazing? Amazing stuff. Everything. So I want to make sure I explain this so you guys can understand this. So this normal, healthy cell, right? The normal, healthy cell has no problem taking in sugar. It can take in that one little bit of sugar, and it produces so much energy. ATP is your energy. It's how much energy it produces. So it doesn't need very much sugar. So as soon as we look at it and say, well, wait a minute, this cancer cell is horrible at bringing in sugar. It needs what? It needs a whole heck of a lot of sugar. Because guess what it can't bring in? What can it bring in? It can't bring in oxygen. So the only thing it can bring in is what? Sugar. That is not my research. That is science. The only fuel a cancer cell can bring in is sugar. That's it. So you go, well, I'm going to go home and not eat sugar anymore. It's not that easy. We'll show you in a second. So we know that the most fuel efficient cell is a normal cell, that these things are completely different. The reason why is because the mitochondria are in every cell. So your cancer cells have these mitochondria. The mitochondria are what bring in this glucose. The mitochondria bring in these molecules of glucose, and then these mitochondria make energy. These mitochondria make energy based upon the sugar coming in. But a normal healthy cell here has no damaged mitochondria. It has none. There's no damaged mitochondria. Somebody's phone's on over there. Is somebody's phone on? Because the reason I say that is because everybody's paying attention to you. And that may save that could save their life. I don't know what's on that. So what happens is these normal healthy cells over here, can bring in a little bit of sugar, and they are very, very efficient. Where this cancer cell, their mitochondria are damaged. So if you look at this picture here, this is a glioblastoma metaform, one of the multiform. It's one of the worst, hardest cancers you could ever have. It's a brain cancer. And when you look at the cells, when you look at a normal cell and you look at a cancer cell, they're completely different. They're completely different. The mitochondria of these glioblastoma forms, which is called GBM, are completely different. Their mitochondria are so damaged that the only thing they can bring in is what? Sugar. That's it. So there's two problems here. The brain is always uptaking sugar. How often? 24 hours a day to survive and keep you alive. Your brain needs fuel more than anything. So it's always bringing in sugar. These brain cancer cells are so starving to live, they need what? They need sugar, they need fuel. So that's why brain cancers are so hard, because it's always being fed. Your body will figure out if you eat too much protein in one meal, it'll take the protein and convert it over to sugar. It'll figure out any way to convert it to sugar. So we know there's a difference between a cancer cell and a normal cell. We know the metabolism is completely different. We know that. We know that it's the Achilles heel. So we know that there's a way to attack it. We know there's a way to get rid of that. So as we look at causes, and again, I've never shown this before. I'm gonna show you exactly that. Number one, who came up with this saying? Test, don't guess. Who came up with that? Dr. Flynn. You gotta test. You gotta test. I'm gonna go through that in a second. So let's figure out these cancers. There's always a cause of these cancers. I promise you. Let's side note here. I'm gonna get off. So I was going to the airport once, and my computer got mixed up with another guy's computer, and the guy working there was like, "Oh my God, you should have kept this computer. That could have been millions of dollars worth of data." And I said, "Oh no. I have billions of dollars worth of data. I have the cure for cancer inside of that." That was when I was writing the book. And he just looked at me, and I was wearing my cancer killer shirt, and he was like, "Maybe it's true." And it absolutely is true. I'm still here 5.5 years later. So what are the causes here? What are the causes here? So number one, let's look at my cancer, multiple myeloma. Let's put these in categories: leukemia and lymphoma. These are immune cancers. These are immune cancers. So when we look at an immune cancer, we have to figure out why would the body be making more white blood cells, right? These are white blood cells, lymphocytes, myelocytes. These are, plasma cells and antibodies and all those fun things. So we look at it and say, in my case, why would my body be producing? Because I was doing blood work off and on for years, and I just kept seeing all these white blood cells, all these antibodies, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, no big deal. I felt great. Was my body doing the right thing at the right time, or was it dumb? It was brilliant. So what the doctors say is, well, wait a minute. You have too many myelocytes. You have too many leukocytes. If you have too many leukocytes, that's leukemia. If you have too many myelocytes, that's myeloma. If you have too many lymphocytes, that's lymphoma. So what we need to do is we need to treat what? Remember, they treat what? The cancer. They don't look at what caused this. What we need to figure out is what would cause it. What would cause my body to raise its white blood cells? Somebody tell me, anybody knows here, why would your body, who here has ever had their white blood cells increased? Why would they increase? An infection, a toxicity, a virus, a food allergy, a food sensitivity. So in my case, I'm gluten intolerant. I had severe benzene in my blood, benzene which you can't have in your blood. I had 12 mercury fillings. I had one root canal that was leaking into my system. I had 2 major viruses, EBV and CMV. Was my immunity doing exactly what it was supposed to do? Was I producing more myeloma cells for a reason? Absolutely. It was trying to keep it under check and keep it under control. So I had 2 choices. I could do chemotherapy. And chemotherapy, and so does radiation, it kills fast, rapidly growing cells. The fastest rapidly growing cells in the human body are the bone marrow and your gut. Where is majority of all your immunity at? The gut and then your bone marrow. So guess how my test would have looked. So if I would have done chemo, I would have had no immune system at all. I couldn't even produce another white blood cell. They would have ran some tests on me and they would have said what? Oh my God, you have no white blood cells. You have no more cancer. You're in remission. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in remission. So then I go home, I go back to my same old lifestyle, right? Because a prescription is nothing more than an excuse for you to keep living the same life. No offense. So that would have been my excuse. I'm like, oh my God, my cancer's gone. I would have went back to my same old life. The virus still would have been there. The chemicals and toxicities still would have been there. All the foods I was eating would have still created an immune response. The benzene still would have been there. So eventually, the new bone marrow, after it finally gets back, after my gut finally gets repaired, the new bone marrow and the new gut says, oh my God, there's a virus. Oh my God, there's a bacterial infection in here. There's all these things. So what does the new bone marrow start producing? What does the new gut start doing again? Starts producing more what? Immunity again. And then they go, oh my God, your cancer's back. Your cancer's back. So what's the key there? I need to clean up what? I need to clean up my environment. I need to test, not guess. And now, what's more important? Should I measure the white blood cells and my myeloma cells or my leukemia or lymphoma? Or should I be measuring my environment, what caused it? Should I be doing toxicity tests, food sensitivity tests, food allergy tests? Should I be doing all the testing that they offer here? Should I be doing that to figure out what's causing it first? Which one do you think would be more important? Which test is more important? What caused it or the cancer? What caused it? Doctors don't do that. Brain. The brain is not that difficult because we know there's only a few things that ever get to the brain. We know the cells of the brain have been damaged. Agree? That's what all cancer starts. All cancer begins with an inflammatory reaction. We're going to go over that in a second. So how would the brain inflame? How would the brain inflame? Nothing gets past the blood-brain barrier except for what? A few things. Toxicities. Whatever affects the gut always affects the brain. And when you see a child, you're like, how does that 2-year-old have brain cancer? Well, remember, he's not 2 years old. How old is that child? That child is, the eggs have been sitting in there, toxic from mom. And then mom passes all her toxins over to them. The child could have been a C-section and lost all its bacteria. The child could have been on an antibiotic. Destroyed the gut, destroyed it. So the gut starts to inflame. You guys saw Dr. Wakefield explaining that. The gut inflames, and some kids go into autism, and some kids go into what? Brain cancer. So I can attack the brain cancer or figure out what caused the brain cancer. So we run what? We'll run a toxicity panel, chelation, all the work. We'll run toxicity work. We'll run what? We're gonna look at your gut, measure the gut level. That's what they do. They measure the gut sensitivities and leaky gut, measure everything, and we know, and then we fix that. We look at sensitivities, everything that affects the gut. For example, I had a patient who came to me with brain cancer, doing an amazing protocol, Gerson, amazing stuff, drinking about 8 juices a day, changed his whole entire lifestyle, diet, was doing high-end treatments and IVs, doing everything. He was doing 8 coffee enemas a day, just amazing stuff. His cancer was getting worse in his brain. And I said, well, did you test the foods? No. Well, let's just do a quick test. We ran all the tests on him, got it back. Carrots came up. And what do you think one of the staples of Gerson therapy was? Carrots. So every time he drank a carrot, what did it do to his gut? Inflamed it and inflamed his brain. Got him off carrots and he's doing way better now, right? Every cancer in everyone's different. Everyone has a different metabolism. Everyone has a different body. I can't treat the same thing someone else did with the same cancer. There are a lot of protocols that are going to be the same, but we don't what? You don't guess. You do what? You guys got to test this stuff. You got to test it. And the best thing to do is don't test when you have cancer. Test before you get cancer. The only cure for cancer is never getting it in the first place. That's it. There will never be a cure. Not because of money, not because of that, because how do you take a pill to fix an environment you destroyed for 7 years? How does one pill fix it? It doesn't, it can't. There isn't, there will never be. There never will be. You can't have it because you got cancer came over. There'll never be a cure for the cold. Come on. If they can't even cure a cold, you think they're going to cure cancer? Right? They still got, the colds are still here, the flu. You're not going to cure cancer. Why? Because you can't cure a symptom. You can't cure a symptom. You can only get to the cause. Colon, we just talked about it, damaging the colon, eating things that damage the colon. Pancreas. Well, we know, what is the job of the pancreas? It has 2 main jobs. What are they? Produce what? Enzymes and produce insulin. So now you take a man or a woman, mainly a lot of men get it more They have a diet of eating tons and tons of bad red meats. They're eating tons and tons of sugar, eating so much red meat it converts to sugar. So what is their pancreas producing all day long? Insulin, 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 insulin. The pancreas is working overtime, and now it's producing enzymes to break the meats down. It's producing enzymes, producing insulin, producing enzymes, producing insulin. And finally, the pancreas says, I got no more. It runs out of enzymes because this is a diet, this is a man or a woman who's eating nothing healthy for her. They're taking acid reflux drugs, lowering their acid levels. They can't break their food down anymore. When you take acid reflux drugs, you now can no longer methylate properly, or you can't detox properly. So now the person is, it's like, I don't know how I got sick. 10 years later, after doing all these things, wonders why his pancreas shut down. The body will always do and always respond. Every symptom is the body doing the right thing. The cells respond to the environment every single time. You change the environment, you change what? You change your what? You change your cells. Breast. Dr. Patrick hit on it, and by far, one of the best testing you could ever do is we know. So when we're talking about hormone, I'm talking about hormonal breast cancer here. I don't know how many women I check, and the first thing I'll say is they'll be like, I'm hormone positive or triple positive or single, whatever. I say, well, what does your hormone panel look like? What do they say? I have no clue. Wait a minute, your doctor did a biopsy. Your biopsy says your hormones are contributing to this, yet you never ran a hormone panel. Because what is causing this? We know hormones is one of the keys besides liver and all kinds of other things, but wouldn't it be smart just to at least run a hormone panel and level out your hormones and get them balanced back out? Hormones don't cause cancer, like Dr. Flynn just said. It's the imbalance of hormones that cause cancer. God doesn't make a mistake. God wouldn't give you hormones to cause cancer. It's when you have an imbalance of them. How smart would it be, women, if you want to truly prevent breast cancer, is to go get tested now and learn your ratios, know your estrogen levels, know your estradiols, know your progesterones. What if you just got tested now? What's better, getting a mammogram every year that causes cancer or getting your levels tested now? Which one would be better? Getting tested now. Just makes sense to me, but you'll pay $900. Oh, my insurance covers the mammogram. You know what I mean? Well, listen, your insurance isn't going to cover it when you get cancer. They barely cover it, right? This was $410,000 surgery they shouldn't have done, and I've spent out of my pocket about $150,000. So insurance doesn't cover those things, right? You have to take care of yourself and your own health. And I can tell you what, testing now and preventing it is a lot cheaper than ever getting it next. And so prostate, we know the problem with prostate is considered a hormonal cancer, right? And so what they do is they tell men, if anybody knows, what hormone do they blame for men why you have prostate cancer? Testosterone. They tell men that the reason why you have prostate cancer is because you have too much testosterone. So that means my 13-year-old out there has prostate cancer. So I guarantee you his testosterone is higher than most of you men in this room. It's not testosterone, it's the imbalance, or it's the conversion of testosterone to DHT. So what they do is they lower the man, give him Lupron, they'll cut out his prostate, whatever it is, destroy his testosterone. And when you destroy a man's testosterone, how does he feel? He would rather kill himself now. And it's not testosterone, it's the conversion of testosterone to DHT, or the aromatizations. Now all of a sudden his testosterone is down, and now his estradiol are high, or his estrogens are high, right? So now he starts feeding it again. So it doesn't matter. Then he gets cancer somewhere else. Or there's men who take their prostate out and still get prostate cancer. They still have a high PSA. So again, we got to get to the causes. We got to get to the causes. So let's talk about killing it right now. Let's talk about killing it. So how do we kill it? So let's just say you got cancer. There's 3 steps that we look at. And step 1 is you got to stop making this cancer first. Step 1 is you have to stop making this cancer first. That's step 1, by getting to the causes. If you just skip to step 2, which everyone wants to do, 95% of the people, whether it's natural or not, you skip to step 2. And what did you forget? To change what? You forgot to change the environment. And you just go to step 2, whether it's natural, thank God you're doing it natural or not, or it's chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, or a combination. All you do is kill the cancer. What are you still? You're still sick. So step 2, though, so we stop making it. Let's stop making it. Let's test this. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's slow this cancer down. Now, in my case, I didn't have time to stop making it. Would you guys agree? I had to kill this stuff. I had to get rid of it. It was crushing my brainstem. I had weeks to live. It would have got big enough and crushed me. I would have been dead. So I had to kill it. Now, I chose to go the other route. I left the hospital then. I flew, and it's all in my book, I flew to Reno, Nevada to do high-end protocols, natural IV vitamin C's, things that Dr. Flynn does, natural IV vitamin C's. I was doing IV poly-MVAs, H2O2, immune supports, everything, because I had to bring that tumor load down so I could now buy time to do what? Get to what? Now I had time to buy to get to the cause. So in some cases, absolutely, you have to get to this level. Some of you may need surgery. It happens. I have a patient whose prostate is so much cancer, it's spreading out the body, but he's may have to go in and do a little bit of some surgery to bring some of that tumor load down because you can't get control of it, and his immune system can't work. Because if you have a tumor that's so big and the immune system is always over here fighting it, sometimes, as long as you understand that when you do surgery, that when you do these things, it's never getting to the cause. It's never getting to the cause. As long as you understand that, if you're going to do chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, I'm not against that. It's your choice. You've got to make sure you protect yourself because chemotherapy kills fast, rapidly growing cells. The problem is the fastest, rapidly growing your cells of your body are not just your hair, they're your gut. They're your gut. You get a new colon lining every 24 hours. And where's 80% of your immunity at least? In your gut. So now you have no immune system left. Then your bone marrow gets destroyed, the rest of your immunity. So you got to protect your body, protect your body. So we got to go through protecting you if that's your decision. So we got to kill the cancer. How do we do it naturally? One way is, we talked about it, what's cancer's preferred fuel source? Sugar. We know it's sugar. We know it's sugar. So let's begin to slow it. We can slow this down. I'm not saying not eating sugar is going to reverse your cancer. That's not what I'm saying here. But will it slow it down? Absolutely, it'll slow it down. So we starve it. How do we starve it? One of the ways we begin to starve it is through anti-angiogenic stuff. Angiogenesis is a blood supply. It's an easy way to put it. When cancer cell gets its own blood supply, it begins to be fed faster. It begins to have the ability to spread throughout your body. It's called angiogenesis. And God, in his wisdom, created so many foods and so many substances that are anti-angiogenic. That when you're juicing, the reason why Gerson therapy works so well is they're juicing 8 times a day. Well, guess what the majority of things they're juicing are? Anti-angiogenic. They're juicing anti-angiogenic. Green tea, anti-angiogenic. Most of your berries, anti-angiogenic. Right? These are anti-angiogenic things. So the more anti-angiogenic we're doing, certain supplements, shark cartilage is anti-angiogenic. C-statin is anti-angiogenic, right? You test, you don't guess. We run what's called a VEGF, which is called vascular endothelial growth factor. You really want to know if your cancer is spreading fast enough? Because the doctors won't tell you until it's too late. You check the blood supply. How fast is it growing? And then if it's growing really fast, you know you got to get on this even more. So we don't test like he says, we don't guess. We got to test this to know what's going on in my body. What else? Ketogenic diet. That's what I've been on for almost 5 years. They say you can't be on it very long. That's because they're not doing it right. We know that, and I love ketogenic. It depends on what cancer. Not all cancers can be on ketogenic. Not all cancers can be on this diet, so be careful. My type of cancer is very good with this type of diet. Ketogenic it's a natural survival mechanism of the body. If I told you right now that you could not eat for 40 days, what happens? Do you all die? Some of you may, because you're very, very, very skinny and there's not much to eat. But some of you can live, 6 months. You're the same person who has like 140 trillion cells. No. Because what happens is, when you go into, God created this, when you're starving, your cells have to have fuel for energy, for you to survive, to work, to function, to do everything they need to do. So your cells say, listen, there's nothing coming in right now. There's no sugars. What does it want? Even your cells want sugar. So what it does is the cells then have to tell the liver to begin to break down your fat to produce what's called ketone bodies. And ketone bodies are one of the best fuel sources your cells can use. It's one of the best fuels you could ever use. What's amazing about ketone bodies in research and in science is when they take a cancer cell and try and give it a ketone body, it dies. Because their mitochondria is damaged, remember? Their mitochondria is damaged. The only thing they know how to bring in for fuel is what? Is sugar. When your body's in ketosis, there's no sugar at all in your blood, and your blood sugar is low in the 70s or 80s, and you get into full real ketosis. That means your body's producing ketones all day long. Your normal healthy cells are like, I don't care, I love ketones. But what are your cancer cells doing? They're beginning to die, especially the brain. The brain, the number one diet with brain cancers is ketogenic, because the brain is always uptaking what? Sugar, 24 hours. It's very hard, very, very, very hard to reverse. But when you give a brain cancer patient and put them on a true ketogenic diet, that means we're measuring it, and you have a glucose meter and ketone meters, and truly measuring your ketone levels to really know you're in ketosis, right? For me, if I eat too much meat in one serving, I go out of ketosis. That's how tricky ketosis is. Because I'm on a ketogenic diet. No, you're not. Not unless you're monitoring it. Not unless you're what? Not unless you're testing instead of guessing. You don't know you're in ketosis or not. So I put myself in ketosis. I've been there almost 5 years. I'm in and out now. I couldn't even eat fruit. And when you're in ketogenic, there's not even fruit. I thought fruit was good for you. Fruit sugar doesn't feed cancer, just so you know that. But fruit sugar raises inflammatory reactions. If somebody's diabetic and they have a lot of fruit, no. So does fruit raise insulin levels? So if anybody's arguing with you, now, fruit sugar is a left spin molecule, which means it cannot be absorbed by a cancer cell. So you don't worry if you're eating fruit and you have cancer, it's not feeding it, it's creating an inflammatory. The cause of every disease process in the world begins with what? Inflammation. So for me, that's where I was, is I cut out. Now I can have little pieces of fruit here and there. It's been 5 years. It doesn't throw me out of ketosis. I always say, I was on a phone with a patient, I said, I think I could have a hot fudge sundae. I don't think it'll throw me out of ketosis. I've been in it for so long. I don't take the chance, though. But once you get into ketosis and you've been there long enough, it's pretty easy to stay there. So being ketogenic is so powerful. And then when you mix with brain cancers and we mix a ketogenic diet with a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, remember, cancer cannot use oxygen. And so you give it oxygen and you give it ketone bodies and it begins to die quickly. So there's some amazing things out there for different cancers that are powerful. Hyperthermia, I'm going to go through some of these things. So these are high-end treatments. I love poly-MVA. This helps go in, changes the mitochondrial level of the cells, of your cancer cells. Hyperthermia, I love heat treatments. When I was in Spain, they would heat up the cancer in there. Now it's tough with a bone marrow cancer to heat up specifically, because it wasn't in my pancreas, right? It wasn't in, now I had obviously the cancer in the brain, they would heat that up. Cancer cells have what's called heat shock proteins, and they don't like heat at all. They don't like it. That's why somebody who has a thyroid issue is more likely to get a cancer, because guess what? Your temperature of your body is what? Is lower. That's why we test, not guess what your thyroid's doing. You go, well, I'm taking Synthroid, I'm taking levothyroxine. That's T4. You probably still have a very low metabolism and thyroid issue. It doesn't do much. The point is that heat is amazing. That when your child wakes up with a fever, that you should be so glad they have a fever, because their body's actually killing what? It's actually killing cancer. It's killing viruses. It's killing bacteria. Normal, healthy cells have no problem with heat, even at high heats. Obviously, all you have to do is search PubMed, search all of the research right now. Every science and every medical study will show you, unless it gets way too hot, you may drop it down. But we're talking very, very, very hot. The body can handle heat. Trust me. I go into, and I was for days, I would go 5, sometimes 6 days a week in an infrared sauna, because I needed to heat up all my blood. And I would be at 150, 160 degrees. Before I got in there, I'd been there an hour and a half. Before I got in there, I would do cayenne pepper, if anybody had it. I would do high doses of niacin. I would be burning up. I wanted to die. My body was so hot, you could measure my temperature. And I'd have to stay in that for an hour and a half. And sometimes I didn't make it. My wife would be in there with me, and I'd be, I'm out, I can't do this anymore. I was burning and itching. What happens, though, is when you heat the body up, you begin heating all the blood up. And when you heat all the blood up, not only does the immune system stimulate, your body detoxes faster, and cancer can't live as long. Pretty cool. So we know that cancer has some Achilles heels. Why don't we use those? Ozone. I did it, ozone IV when I was in Spain. Ozone is 3 parts oxygen. What does cancer hate? Oxygen. So we increased the levels of oxygen. They took my blood out. They would take my blood, put it up. They would put ozone into it directly. The 3 parts oxygen, then put it back into my body. And it would stimulate the oxygen fast all through my body. And what would happen to some of the cancer? It couldn't live as long. Rectally, I have to do it rectally now because I'm in the States. You're not allowed here. Very, very few are able to do it here. And 90% of the ozone can get up through into your bloodstream. Through the ears, it's done a lot of work with brain cancer patients. When you put ozone through into here, it can get to their brain and help it. PEMF, which is positron electronic modification frequency, kind of like a Rife machine or electrical medicine. I love it. It helps change the electrical activity of cells. Very easy. I love this with children because you bring me a child with cancer. Trying to get a child at 4 years old to juice isn't that easy. Trying to get a 4-year-old to sit in an infrared sauna isn't easy. Trying to get her to put IVs in her isn't that easy, right? So you have to find things when you have a child with cancer that goes, okay, what could we do here? What could we do that they could do 8, 10, 12 hours a day? PEMF is one of those. Hyperbaric oxygen chambers are one of those. There's certain things that really could do well with children more than adults. And so I'm on that on a regular basis. IV vitamin C, I love. IV H2O2, and both of these work kind of in the same way. The great thing with IV vitamin C is, obviously it's not an antioxidant when you do it intravenously, it's a pro-oxidant, but cancer cells love what? Sugar, and guess what the cancer cell thinks when vitamin C comes in the body, what it is? It thinks it's sugar, and boom, it zaps it, the pro-oxidizing effect to kill it. Amazing, amazing stuff. That I was doing, all the time, sometimes twice a week. Now I do it once every 2 weeks, sometimes once a month now. So a lot of these things I still do. I still do PEMF every other day. I do a lot of these protocols still, even 5.5 years later. Why? Because if you give it an inch, it'll take a mile. If you give it an inch, it'll take a mile. So UV blood cleaning, what they do is they take the blood out. Anybody knows how UV light works? If you ever see how do a water in a stream, how does a water in a stream get cleaned? From the light, the UV, right? And when the UV light hits that stream at a certain rate, the viruses, the bacteria, anything in that water dies. And so that's how they got that. So they take your blood out, not all of it, they take some of your blood out, they put it back through UV light, and when they put it through UV light, it stimulates an immune response. It begins to kill viruses, bacteria. Because remember, I was full of viruses. I had to kill the viruses off, because remember, it was my environment that caused the cancers. Proteolytic enzymes, I love this. Very good treatments. Again, there are so many. I'm just showing you guys a few. Is that okay? So proteolytic enzymes, very important. Protein, there are different enzymes. There's enzymes that break down, obviously fats and sugars, and there's proteins. So protein-eating enzymes are important. Your pancreas produces these. When you eat and take enzymes, proteolytic enzymes on an empty stomach, these enzymes will eat the proteins you eat. They help break it down. They're really good for you because then it doesn't, do a number on your digestive tract. But when you take a high enough dose on an empty stomach, there's no protein. But the outer layer of every cancer cell is made of what? It's made of protein. So it begins to go in and eat it. It just knows. They're smart. They're just looking for protein. They eat it. And at that moment, about an hour after I do it, I then can hit it with an ozone. I can hit it with hyperthermia. I can hit it with these high-end treatments. I can stimulate my immune system through UV, medicinal mushrooms. I can stimulate my immune system fast for the next couple hours, and that cancer is so sensitive. So we want to make the cancer sensitive because none of these treatments work perfectly because cancer is so smart. It's so smart that whenever the immune system goes to go after it, the immune system knows the cancer is there. It goes after it, but the outer layer of cancer cells are so acidic as well that these white blood cells just can't even penetrate them. So we got to figure out ways to trick it. That's what IV vitamin C does. Different things, they trick their way into that cancer cell to kill those cells. And so hyperbaric oxygen chamber, again, I talked about it. I love that. Hyperbaric, bringing in that extra oxygen, high-end oxygen, bringing in oxygen into the body. IPT, which is called insulin potentiated therapy. If somebody says, you know what, I need to do chemotherapy, my family's going for it, I have a patient who has so much cancer right now, we need some big guns. I don't know if IV vitamin C is gonna be fast enough for him. I don't think it's gonna be fast enough for him. IPT will do it. IPT is a form of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy has, whatever you agree, chemotherapy has the ability to kill some fast, rapidly growing cells. So what they do, though, is when you get chemotherapy on a regular, all they do is they guess. They don't test. They guess which chemotherapy was right for you. So if you're 43 years old with breast cancer, they will give you the same chemotherapy as a 73-year-old with your same cancer in Australia. Instead of saying, wait a minute, you're different, your metabolism's different, who you are is different, your cancer is different, everything's different about you, your liver, the way you handle it's different, your digestive system's different. Instead of testing it, they guess. When all you need to do is what's called a chemosensitivity test. And they test which chemos your cancer is sensitive to. So instead of guessing, they go, okay, there's 4 of these chemos that are working really well. And what they do in that moment is they get you to a point where they lower your blood sugar so low. They inject you with insulin. At that moment, your blood sugar goes really, really, really low. I mean, we're talking like you want to pass out, 55, 60. I've seen some of the patients go into this, and you're going through these withdrawals almost. And at the moment, there's a perfect moment of threshold where they'll then take 10% of that chemo, just a little bit that's been tested. They inject them with a little bit, but the cancer right now is starving because it doesn't have what? Sugar, and it'll take anything in, and it'll take in that chemo. It's very weak because it has no fuel. It's very, very, very weak, and now that little bit of chemo works. It's called IPT. So there are ways, and amazing ways, it's called targeted chemotherapy. But are your doctors doing that? They will naysay that. Any of the testing, they naysay it. They say, oh, chemosensitivity tests don't work. Well, you know why? Because every one of my patients who goes and gets a chemosensitive test, who's been through chemo, found out that none of their chemos showed up. So if I'm a doctor and my money is on chemo, and I run a chemosensitivity test on you, a lot of times it'll show 0. So are you gonna do chemo? No. How much money would they lose? So they aren't doing chemosensitivity testing, very rarely. But you can run that stuff. You can have that done. Now again, will your insurance pay for it? No. So now you gotta go spend $2,000 or $3,000 to have this testing done. When it's available, and it's available, even some medical doctors. If you go to Germany right now, Germany does that. Even the hospitals there will do that first. We don't do it in this country when we know it works. So there's amazing ways to do this. Budwig, I love Budwig. Budwig is a principle of bringing oxygen back into the cells. I mean, there's so many ways. Those of you that have read the book already, I go through all of those in the book, the ones I did, the ones I love the best. But again, step 1 is stop making it. Step 2 is now we got to kill this thing. Step 3, though, is now we got to rebuild the immune system. We got to get the immune system strong. You have cancer because you have an imbalance of immunity. Your immune system got weak. Every day you wake up, some of you have between 5 to 10,000 cancer cells. Some of you have 30,000 cancer cells growing. Some of your kids wake up probably with 100,000. Seriously, they have that many cancer cells. But guess what? Their brain recognizes, sends a message down the spinal cord through those nerves, recognizes that cancer and tells the immune system to do what? Tells it to kill it. So as long as your brain, spinal cord, nerves are clear, as long as your brain can get to the immune system and talk to it, as long as your brain can see the cancer, it's going to keep killing it. As long as your immune system's strong enough and it's not bogged down over here, because here was my immune system. My immune system wasn't really weak, but it was over here with 2 viruses. It was over here with benzene. It was over here with all these food sensitivities attacking. So I eat a food, it was over here. It was over here in the benzene. It was over here on the viruses. It was over here with the root canal leaking, which is all bacteria. It was all the mercury fillings. It was, right? So but I don't care how strong my immune system was in one sense, it couldn't do everything. All of a sudden, cancer cell shows up and it says, wait a minute, I don't have time for your cancer right now. I got to fix all these other things going on. So once we slow it down making it, you begin to kill this thing. Now you begin to rebuild the immune system back up, which started it all in the beginning. So how do we do that? There are a lot of things. Beta-glucans, medicinal mushrooms. I mean, these things are amazing. Those of you who had some already today, some of you drank some of that today. Powerful, powerful, powerful things. Medicinal mushrooms are adaptogenic. And what that means is a lot of people who go, well, I can't have too much. I have a lot of patients come in with leukemia. They're like, well, don't I have too much immunity? I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. But my white blood cells are high. Well, it wouldn't matter anyway because medicinal mushrooms are going to be adaptogenic anyway. They're smart. So they're going to raise it up or lower it. They're going to do what they need to do. That's why they're so powerful. PNC27, MGN3s, GC-MAF. A lot of you have heard of this. This has been in a lot of controversy right now. It works that well. So there's a lot of great things out there that will help rebuild and strengthen the immune system. We pick 2 or 3 of those. We rotate those on a regular basis. Again, this isn't just if somebody's got cancer, right? This is for every one of you because the chances of every one of you getting cancer are very high. It is. It's very high. Unless you're doing the right things to never get cancer, keeping your immune system strong. And so I know a lot of you get confused. I remember laying in that hospital bed. I remember laying there thinking, where's where's the blessing here? It's not that easy sometimes. Where's the blessing? Where's the gift? You know, one of the amazing gifts I got was my fourth child, but probably the most amazing gift I was given was this knowledge right here, right? I began writing probably 2 days after I said, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to travel the world, and I'm going to teach people how to never get cancer and how to reverse it and live longer. It was a gift that I got, and it was over 300 pages. And they said to me, there's no way anybody's going to be able to read it, because most people don't read a book, no offense, let alone a cancer patient. So the hardest thing was taking 300 pages and bringing it down to 100 so people could actually read it and get the best of the best of the best. I needed a guide. As I laid there in the hospital, it was tough. I mean, people were telling you do this and do this and do this. You open up the internet and there were so many things out there. And I said, nope, I need to write a book. I need to go through my whole journey, what I did, where I went, what cancer is, how it's a survival mechanism. But then I need people to understand it. And it can't be my belief. So then I had Sayer G, who, those of you know, Green Med Info, the #1 science research website in the world is called Green Med Info. We got him on board. He went through the whole thing. Everything I said, backed it up with every scientific research there was. Dr. Ben Lerner, who was by my side the whole time, actually went in and wrote it. Dr. Patrick Flynn, who was driving in and out with his family, making sure I was taken care of. People are all around me. And I knew that when I got out, this had to be done. This had to be done. And so this is 5 years later. That's my new MRI. Because when you change the way you look at things, the thing you look at changes. When you change your perception of what cancer is, you begin to take the right actions. And those right actions you take may just save your life. Thanks.
I make dollars, I mean billions. I'm a genius.
And then,
I mean brilliance. The switches of school and made them sick.
and a lot of you asked me, do I have any books? Yeah, I mean, I think we're almost sold out, but I'll be signing books after this, Q&A. I'll be here all night with my family. You guys ask me questions, come sign books. We'll be right over there where the booth is there.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from my closest friends, Dr. Chuck Mabel.
And enjoy this moment, darling.
Cool. All right, have a seat for me for a second. Dr. Chuck is going to sneak out back and he's going to be in this booth. And yeah, let me tell you, that was a devastating day when he called me and I actually drove down to that hospital. And I used to go back and forth like he was talking about that way. But I told him that, guess what? He didn't tell a story, but I remember he could barely walk. And I said, grab my arm. He's like, and he walked down the hallway. He could barely crawl. Talk about 118 pounds. He was very small. It was a very tough emotional thing, even listening to the history there. I don't even want to go back and think about that. When you're diagnosed with cancer, it's devastating, isn't it? It's one of the worst and most scary things you can ever hear. But at least the journey can have a good end. So let me ask you a question, guys. Did you guys have a fun day? Yeah. Now, do me a favor. How many of you guys know at least 4 or 5 people that should have been here with you? Here's the cool thing is this. I promise you, if you support us, somebody said support us is just, do me a favor. Could you guys actually take a picture of yourself and put it on Facebook and go to our websites and sign up for things that way? Because then more people we can reach that way. I promise you I'll keep on putting on great free events for people to come with no strings attached, just so you can actually have some great information so you can make a choice. Do you think from what you've learned today, you can make some better choices today? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate all you guys here. We're going to be around here for a while yet. So he said anybody wants to get autographed or talked by Dr. Chuck that way, he said definitely go out there and thank you. And we'll be out in the lobby for a while chatting. So have a great time, guys, and be safe on the way home.